Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to another session of the Vibal Group webinar. And this afternoon, we're going to talk about contextualized learning delivery modalities. So this is a very good topic that we could talk about, especially um, on the pressing issues nowadays regarding the new normal way of conducting education system or reaching out the learners in different modalities. So as you all know, just recently, um, the Department of Education has released a sort of modified curriculum coverage wherein they have lessened the, the curriculum content in terms of competencies. And as far as I know, the competencies have been reduced into um, 40%. I think remaining 60% is in the curriculum. So this afternoon we will be clarified on uh, different ways from which we could be able to address the instructions. This afternoon we will focus on contextualized learning as one of the approach from which we could be able to deliver the lesson to our students in many different ways or in many different modalities. Okay? So kumusta sa lahat ng mga viewers dyan sa natin coming from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, yung mga umattend kaninang umagang session ko on organizing scientific research program, welcome again to this afternoon session. And we're hoping that everyone would be edified, everyone would learn, and everyone could be able to get some ideas on how you could be able to effectively deliver this particular learning approach in the new normal. Okay, I will share with you my screen. Lang. Okay, there you go. So first, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Joseph Jacob, and I'm currently serving as educational consultant to different schools in the Philippines. And I'm also the president of the National Science and Engineering Fair, and at the same time, director of the STEM Education Training Hub. So if you would check my Facebook page, you would see me traveling around the Philippines and other countries, conducting different programs, helping the schools and the teachers doing their action planning, helping them use the assessment data as a means for decision making in running their school, and at the same time helping them decide on the particular instruction, methods in terms of the curriculum content and implementation. So I do stuff like that. And I used to work also in the Department of Education, supervising education program specialist. I took charge of the curriculum development, training, policy formulation, and many other similar tasks. So this afternoon, we will be dealing with some of the questions, and perhaps most of you have already attended different webinars on the different sources or ways from which the schools and the teachers could be able to conduct distance learning. Okay, perhaps you have already been oriented on the different resources that you could possibly do, on the different kinds of learning management system available, free or paid, and etc. So this afternoon, we will be focusing on the actual content of a particular strategy or approach that we will be using. So this afternoon, we will be focusing on contextualized learning. I'd like to show to you this picture, and perhaps you are familiar with this scenario. Okay, so in this photo, there's a math teacher asking the learner to solve 1 plus 1 equals something. And yes, sabi niya, this will be useful to you in your later life. Many of us have studied mathematics, particularly when we were in high school, we studied algebra or trigonometry or any other related topic to mathematics. And somehow, many of us, and even our classmates, if you would remember, have fear on mathematics. Tama po ba? Eh, minsan natatakot sa math. Okay, what is the reason? Uh, what is the reason why? Bakit natatakot sa math? Okay, kasi they don't know how they could be able to apply it in their lives. So many of us would ask, what is the best way to teach so that all students can use and retain that information? Okay, and that's one way from which we could be able to test whether the students have learned. Okay, retention of the information that have been given to them, right? And we assess them in different manner, like paper and pencil and so on and so forth. Another question that many of us would ask, how can a teacher communicate effectively with students who wonder about the relevance of what they study? So many of us have become learners or students. One of the interest factor that we get from the lessons that we learn from our teachers is the applicability of all these lessons in life. And perhaps being a child learner, we don't have much exposure about the outside world on how we could be able to apply them. Just like, for example, in my experience as a chemistry teacher, when I was in high school, hello? Okay. So, when I was in high school, I was also asking, how can we be able to apply all those mathematical equations in life? Until I became a chemistry teacher, wherein I asked my students to solve a particular problem in chemistry. So there was like a sort of missing chemical compound in the problem. And the only way to find out the solution or to identify that particular chemical compound is to use dimensional analysis. And in using the dimensional analysis, you need to represent the variables using letters, okay, using letters or variables like X, Y, and Z. So that gave me a hint, or it reminded me of my classmate when I was in high school, when he asked me, he was my seatmate, one time during our math lesson, he asked me, Joseph, can I be able to use these math lessons when I become a janitor? I told him, I don't know. Perhaps you could ask our teacher. Okay. And in the later years, when I was already a teacher, I come to realize, yes, if he became a janitor, he could possibly use dimensional analysis. For example, in identifying the missing cleaning materials or walis tingting or walis tambo, all he needs to have is the given, which is the inventory of the cleaning materials at the beginning of the school year, perhaps. So this would give us an idea that every teacher should be able to connect the lesson into the lives of the learners. They should be able to establish a connection so that the learners would be able to have a better appreciation on what is being learned, what must be learned, or what should be learned. Because they could be able to see it clearly how it runs in their environment, how it runs in their life per se. So a crucial failing of educational systems, not just in the Philippines, but also worldwide, has been their lack of relevance into the lives of the learners. So I do admonish all of you to be able to include this in your curriculum planning system. So we have to make sure that the instruction that we could possibly use as we implement the curriculum should integrate the relevance of the lessons in the lives of the students. Parang every lesson or every topic or every competence, the teacher should be able to find ways from which he or she could be able to create activities that can be appreciated by the learners because they are exposed to that. Okay, let me give you a concrete example. For example, blogging or gaming is one of the, or TikToking. Although I don't recommend TikTok because it gets in all your personal information. So for example, blogging. Um, Blogging can be used as one of the strategies in implementing a particular lesson because they're used to it. They love it. They want to showcase their talent, their interest through blogging. So, is there a possibility wherein you could be able to integrate a lesson on pronunciation, grammar, or history in blogging? Okay, so therefore, um, by doing so, you could be able to utilize a very old-fashioned lesson and have an integration of it into what the students are doing nowadays. So many students have difficult time understanding academic concepts. Yes, that is given, particularly the math concepts, as they are commonly taught using lecture method, Socratic approach, using abstract, okay? And they need to understand concepts as they relate to the, for example, workplace or their environment they are in, and to the larger society in which they will live or thrive or even work. So gusto nila makita para saan ang lesson na to. So all the while you are giving lectures, lesson, okay, perhaps the question that is lingering in the minds of your learners is this: what is this for? Para saan to? How can I be able to use it as a person? Okay, so that's why as we plan our lesson or even the curriculum, as we implement the curriculum using a particular instruction, we have to make sure that we need to have an inventory of the learners. Perhaps the guidance office could work hand in hand with the teachers or the head teachers in identifying relevant information, personal information of the learners to the teachers, so that the teachers could be able to utilize this information in order to execute a better lesson. Kasi if the teacher knows some informational background about the learners, alam niya what kind of tool is she or he going to use. What type of material will be used? What type of integration will be used? So therefore, you are establishing a common belief between you and the learners. There will not be any contradicting belief. Okay? All right. And this lack of relevance, anong resulta nito? Kapag walang relevance, do you know what happens? It weakens the connection and bond between communities, okay? Communities, learners, and school. Okay. All right. And thus damages educational outcomes through decreased student community and teacher engagement in the learning uh, process. Right? Okay. So in terms of the educational thrust, okay, of the Department of Education, we it is trying its best. It is trying its best to be able to connect to the learners. That's why during the implementation of the K-12 program, the two trending topics that we had were both localization and contextualization. So this afternoon, we will be focusing solely on the contextualization. So, but first, because these two words are being used interchangeably, so I prefer to explain to you the difference between localization and the contextualization. So when we speak of localization, it is the process of adapting and relating the content of the curriculum and the process of teaching and learning to local conditions, environment, and resources. For example, if the curriculum says, for example, in TLE, it says that the learners will be able to cook adobong baboy, diba? Adobong baboy. But this curriculum will not just be implemented in Luzon. Perhaps it will be implemented in other parts of the Philippines where there are a group of people, for example, Muslim, they don't eat pork. Ba? It's not allowed based on their culture. So therefore, how would you localize that? So instead of using pork, perhaps you could use chicken, ba, as a teacher. Or perhaps you have students that are Buddhists, okay, that don't eat either pork or beef or any kind of meat, but they are vegetarian. So perhaps instead of um, using pork, she could use vegetables like adobong kangkong or adobong sitaw, like that. So that's how you localize. And by doing so, you will not be harming the curriculum, but you will be strengthening the curriculum implementation in your locality without compromising the curriculum standard. That's how you localize. So malinaw na po sa inyong lahat. That's the meaning of localization. Pangalawa, this is our topic, contextualization. So in contextualization naman na to, it is the process of presenting lesson in meaningful and relevant context. So very tricky yun. Meaningful and relevant. Meaningful kanino? Meaningful to the learner. Meaningful sa mga bata. Relevant kanino? Hindi lang kay teacher. Relevant sa mga bata. All right? So again, I would like to go to the inventory of the kids, of the students. Therefore, in order to be able to establish or create a meaningful context or a meaningful and relevant lesson, you should know the background of the learners. Ano sila? What they do? What is their interest? Okay? So what are their hobbies? What are their talents? In which environment are they exposed to? Is it a desert? Diba? Is it a modernized place? Are they living in the building? Diba? Baka ang mga examples mo, puro urban, pero your students are living in the rural area and they don't know the difference between kalabaw and baka. Right? So therefore, the teachers must have a strong background um, about the students in order to be able to, to implement a contextualized learning. Kasi you cannot be able to do a contextualized approach in teaching if you don't understand who your learners are. Okay, you cannot be able to create a meaningful lesson or a relevant lesson unless you have an idea, okay, who are you teaching to? So therefore, that's how we do contextualization. We create a meaningful and relevant context based on the previous experiences. So dito medyo detective tayo ng konti. We need to know the previous experiences and background of our students for us to be able to create real life situations wherein we could place in our lesson in those real life situations. Di ba napakaganda? Napakasarap isipin na yung lessons mo can be seen, okay, or can be applied in their kitchen. Your lesson in organizing or sorting things according to their characteristics can be applied in their bedroom. Huh? All right, so things like that. For example, your lesson on the expansion of matter when it is cooled, for example, yung water. Kapag naging yellow siya, it forms a molecule na ang shape niya is parang hexagonal. So therefore, kapag nilagay mo yon, if you put that into the freezer, uh, it will occupy a bigger space. Parang mag-expand siya kagaya ng yellow, di ba? So therefore, the lesson there, ang bata dapat maglalagay ng tubig na gagawing yellow sa flexible na container kagaya ng plastic container. Hindi niya ilalagay ang tubig na gusto niyang magyelo sa babasaging garapon. Kasi the matter will expand kapag nalamigan siya, therefore, mababasag yung kanyang glass container. So di ba, napakaganda. It's very interesting to create lessons that have meaning in the lives of the learners. I know that this is challenging. So this time during pandemic, perhaps most of you or all of you have stopped and smelled the roses. And then in stopping and smelling the roses, perhaps it has given you a much bigger view on the application of each lesson in the household, in your garden, in the market, in the current situation in general. So perhaps all of you already have an understanding on what contextualization is. Okay, so what is the commonality between contextualization and localization? So they both adhere in making the lesson flexible, fit, creative, relevant, meaningful, and adapted to the student's level of understanding and instructional needs. So, dear participants, please do not get stressed. Okay? Huwag kayong masyadong ma-stress if you don't have any connectivity. Huwag kayong ma-stress. Bakit? Because in the flexible learning delivery, there could be many possible ways. Perhaps many of you are asking, walang connectivity, walang ganito, walang internet, etc. Walang ang signal. Okay? Dear participants, that's not the end of the world of learning. Learning should be flexible enough, adaptive enough to the needs of the learners. Kung wala talagang internet, you could use module, paper and pencil, Manila paper pa rin, pictures and etc. Okay, mga books. Kung walang book, pwede tayong mag-create ng mga pwede natin ipa-photocopy ng mga materials. So anything that we could possibly do to meet the needs of the learners. So again, I'll go back. How are we going to start this type of learning? Okay, the contextualized learning. Again, we need to check and balance how can we be able to adapt to the needs of the learners. Because oftentimes, we complain collectively. Wala lahat, wala lahat, wala lahat, ganon. Pero wala pa tayong data. Those complaints are not being backed up by the data. So we need to identify exactly through research, okay, how many students need worksheets, how many students need face-to-face, how many students need flash drive that they could open so they could watch the lesson, how many students need the actual instructional materials, how many students need um, an online material that could be sent from the teacher to the students through online portal. Okay, so alamin natin. And let's see how we could be able to adapt based on the needs of the learners. And by doing so, by doing a sort of research, we could be able to tell or know what particular specific needs of the students are. Right? So in the contextualized learning, okay, we could practice endeavors that would link theoretical constructs. So may mga tinuturo tayo and normally what we are teaching are theories. Okay? These are the theoretical constructs that are being taught during the learning process. So the problem is, how can you make these theoretical constructs into practical or real-world context? Paano nila makikita to? Paano nila ito may experience? So yun yung contextualized learning. For example, if you're talking about atoms, di ba? If you're talking about hydrogen, okay, or oxygen, how can they be able to see that in a practical manner and in a real world context? Dear school administrators, yan yung tatanungin natin sa ating mga teachers. Okay, pag-iisipan nila mabuti yan habang wala pang pasok. So how can they be able to possibly do that? Next is contextualized learning recognizes that by embedding instructions in context that learners are familiar with, the learners could be able to readily understand and assimilate those instructions. All right? So, as the teachers would plan for the uh, next school year, for example, una niyang titignan syempre yung curriculum. And then as they look at the curriculum, titignan niya or perhaps pwede siyang gumawa ng isang column wherein the teacher could be able to identify learning connections. If you really want to implement contextualized learning. Learning connections, for example, ano ba ang pwede kong ma-connect sa lesson na to? For example, friction. Diba? And then at the side of the lesson on friction, your example perhaps is gas-gas na tsinelas. Ha? Tsinelas. O kaya naman, kung mayayaman yung mga students mo, gas-gas na gulong. Diba? Kung gulong ng gulong ng bisikleta or gulong ng motorsiklo. Kung mas mayaman pa rin yung mga students mo, gulong ng kotse na 4 na gulong. And then pag mas mayaman pa, you could include the brand name of the tires or the brand of the car. So that's how you could be able to contextualize with them. So wag nating ipilit yung mga bagay na hindi sila exposed. As long as we are not harming the curriculum standards, so be it. So this is one way, dear school administrators, that we could be able to prepare our school for contextualized learning. In the curriculum, you have it, you have the list, you have the reduced competency of dev ed. And then on the right side, you could ask your teachers, we still have like June, July, we still have like 2 months or 2 to 3 months to prepare. Let's embed the instruction into the curriculum. Okay? Instructions that students are familiar with. Okay? So, pwede yun. Halimbawa, ano yung mga stories na pwede mong i-connect dito. Let's say, depression. May magandang story dito sa online na ginawang movie. Ang Diary ng Pangit, for example. Which is gustong-gusto ng mga kabataan before. Parang several years ago. Gustong-gusto nila yan. So perhaps pwede natin gamitin yan as one of the examples. So the real context about contextualized learning is we need to establish a particular teaching practice or teaching preparation practice that would able to establish a connection between our lesson or theoretical constructs to the real world context. Ililink natin silang dalawa. Para hindi puro abstracts ang ating mga tinuturo. Hindi tayo puro lecture. So in a layman's language, etong tanong, saan natin i-apply ang mga natutunan or natututunan ng mga bata? Kung saan, hahanapin natin yun. So in terms of the contextualized learning theory, learning occurs only when students, okay? So how can they be able to know that learning occurs? Kasi sa contextualized learning theory, we need to ensure that the learning really occurs. So una, we need to check and balance, or we need to assess if the learners could be able to process new information or knowledge. So hindi sila masyadong dinidiktahan ng kaalaman, kundi they could be able to tell, okay, or process new information or knowledge. For example, gusto mong i-develop yung observation skills ng mga preschool, no? And then in a container, meron kang container ng lupa na merong mga worms. Let's say naglagay ka ng 20 na worms doon, earthworm. And then what you would do is you will ask these kindergarten learners to be able to observe or draw their observation. And then Bumalik sila sa'yo, pinakita yung drawing. May isang bata, 5 lang ang drawing niya. So instead of telling the learner na mali ang drawing mo, 20 dapat, hindi 5. Mali yun. Dapat tutulungan natin siya to process new information or knowledge. So pwede nating tanungin, how did you know that there are 5 worms in the container, diba? So ano kayang pwedeng gawin mo para malaman mo kung may iba pang worms? So ibig sabihin nun, siya ang mag-iisip ng paraan. Yes, na-discover niya na merong 5 worms in the container. At gusto mo pa siyang makahanap pa ng information. Bukod sa worm, meron pa kaya? Sasabihin niya, I don't know. And then you could ask, how would you find out? Diba? So these are some of the possible strategies from which we could be able to apply contextualized learning, okay, theory in our classroom, in whatever level they are. This could be applied in the kindergarten. This could be applied in the elementary and in high school. And alam niyo ba, this strategy can also be applied in the adult training process. Sa mga workforce, pwede itong magamit. Okay, so if you're planning to create your own company or create your own workforce, you could use the contextualized learning theory, okay, as your tool in designing a training program for the people. Next, it makes sense to them in their own frames of reference, meaning their own inner worlds of memory, experience, and response. So hayaan natin sila, hayaan natin yung mga bata na gamitin ang mga salita na familiar sa kanila. And to be able to express their understanding on a certain content. Kaya nga po, nung dinesign yung K-12 program, yung team namin at saka yung mga team ng iba pang nag-develop ng different subject areas, we tried our best to be able to remove the competency that tells define. Because we want the students to create their own definitions based on their understanding. So this would create a more lasting learning experience. Mas matatandaan nila yun. Kung kaya nilang i-explain ang ibig sabihin ng biology, ng physics, or anong ibig sabihin ng buhangin, ng ulap, ng ilaw, using their own words. Ang babantayan lang ng mga teachers ay kung tama ba to. So iwasan na natin yon. Because the trend nowadays is for our students to really learn. And they learn if they create new knowledge, if they could be able to process new information, if they could be able to make sense of what they have learned. So, the mind, yung ating mga isip, naturally seeks meaning in context. Kaya nga 'di ba maraming mga nababash na mga vloggers, 'di ba? Maraming mga nababash. Halimbawa yung the law of the classroom, 'di ba? Although wala namang ginagawang masama ang artista, she doesn't harm anybody. Kaya lang maraming nang babash sa kanya kasi nang dahil sa isip ng mga tao. Ang mga tao ay nainis kasi naghahanap siya ng meaning sa context sa sinabi ng artista. Diba? So that's how our mind naturally flows. Okay? The mind naturally seeks meaning in context by searching for relationship that makes sense and appear useful. So ganyan din yung mga bata. Diba? That's why we should try our best to be able to create a learning context that are useful, okay, to the learners. Diba? At magiging useful to, again, kung meron significance in their life. So, why are we going to use contextual approach? Okay, applicable ba to sa pandemic? Yes. Diba? Yes. Kasi you could be able to use contextual approach in designing the curriculum, diba? In identifying the mode of instruction, in identifying the learning delivery, in identifying the learning management system. in identifying the learning materials. So magagamit natin to. Kaya dapat there should be an approach in mind. Kasi ngayon, masyado tayong focus sa mga resources. Kaya nagkukulang tayo sa content. Okay, or the actual strategical content that we could possibly use in implementing the distance learning. So ngayon, we are focusing on this, on the actual strategical content, focusing on the contextual learning approach. Okay? It has to be grounded in the following. Una, maganda to, we could play it safe, yung contextual learning approach kapag in-apply natin yan. Maganda to na sinadjust na topic ng Bibal kasi they know for sure that the teachers and the school administrators are flexible enough in applying it. Or there's a certain flexibility in this approach. Una, it is grounded in the following pedagogical theory. All right? So it is actually the activities of contextual learning are actually aligned in the mainstream pedagogical body of knowledge. Ano to? Okay, it supports the motivation theory. Of course, the learners will be motivated if they know how they can be able to apply the lessons in their lives. Social learning theories, um, in designing programs for the students, again, we should not forget, though meron tayong social distancing, there are other ways from which they could be able to learn socially or interact with one another, just like what we are doing nowadays. Diba? So again, this contextual learning approach could be able to serve as a tool in satisfying the social learning theories. At ito yung gustong-gusto ko, problem-centered or problem-based learning or PBL. Kasi pag may mga PBL tayo talaga, the learners should be able to analyze the situation and find ways to get out of the situation or deal with the situation using, okay, the knowledge learned, the skills learned, the process learned from the curriculum or from the instruction. Gustong-gusto ko tong problem-centered learning because this is the test on how they can be able to utilize the things that they have learned, the skills that they have developed. Huh? Okay. And other modern psychological and physiological research around on how human brains learn. So yan. So it is anchored on different pedagogical theories. Okay, again, such as motivation theories, social learning, problem-centered learning, and etc. So again, it is also grounded in the real world. So kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, rather than teach from the abstract or theoretical world, using contextual learning strategies helps learners to take on real world challenge. Real world challenge. For example, um, in the TEIs or Teaching Education Institute, di ba? As we all know, for example, kagaya ng pinag-aralan ko, yung isang school na pinag-aralan ko ay masyadong focus sa application, yung isa naman sa writing. Di ba? Isa sa writing naman, isa sa execution and teaching. So may kanya-kanya silang specialization. So dapat pala, balanse. Kasi when you become a teacher, you do the actual application in terms of teaching, and then half of your life will be devoted on the written word as well, on the report. So dapat pareho siyang nade-develop. So by creating activities that would be useful to them in the real world, okay, mas magiging mahalaga ang mga lessons sa mga bata. While I was watching a particular show on YouTube, um, there's a man that was interviewed there. He's a Hollywood special effects specialist. So ang ganda ng trabaho niya, di ba? Hollywood special effects specialist. So he was in charge yung mga pasabog, di ba? Yung mga bumubulaing bibig as if the character was poisoned or was bitten by a vampire like that. You know, I was surprised. I was thinking that he's a graduate of a premier university with a major on special effects. But no, he's not. Sabi niya, I got these inspirations and ideas from my grade 5 science lessons. When I was in grade 5, we created a volcanic eruption situation using vinegar and using baking soda. So, ginamit niya yun. So that inspired me to create some more. So I was really inspired with my grade 5 science lessons or science activities and experiments. So I was surprised. So again, dear teachers, so we need to ensure that the lessons that we execute are in the real world context. Okay? And it's also be grounded on specificity. So it has to be specific because contextual learning approach to students relies on context. Okay? Trainers or teachers can offer content that is built within a specific context and in mind. For example, you have a particular, mamaya I'll show you some more examples. If you have lesson on pressure, so you could be able to create situations that would demonstrate the effect of pressure. Let's say the utilization of um, pressure cooker, sphygmomanometer. Okay, what happens if you step on a cardboard, for example, that is very thin as compared to the thick cardboard. So, ganyan. And last, okay, we could also deal with the speed. By focusing on a bigger picture first, by focusing on the big context, okay? And then later on, halimbawa, no, nagtitrain kayo mga employees or mga students, etc. Okay? So, mas mapapadali yung ating proseso. Okay? Oh. Kanina pa ngayon lang. Hmm. Right? Right? I'm hoping that you see my PowerPoint now. All right? All right. So I'll go back. So perhaps you could be able to see the PowerPoint. Wala pa lang PowerPoint kanina. Okay. So bakit? Again, I would like to repeat. Um, Contextual learning should be grounded in the pedagogical theory, in the real world, and in terms of specificity and in terms of speed. So contextual learning strategies in practice. So una, how are we going to apply it? Ano ba yung mga strategies that we could possibly uh, use? Okay? Una, we could design with the most relevant approach in mind. So titignan natin. So where are we going to apply the contextual learning strategy? Hindi basta na lang mag-iisip tayo ng different modalities. So we should know our target. We should start with a review of our curriculum. Okay, titignan natin which among these competencies or the standards, for example, is focused on knowledge, which is focused on skills, or which is focused on the cognitive approaches. Yan. So makikita natin yan, titignan natin. So mababasa natin yan sa curriculum guide. And we could be able to tell kung ano yung mga focus natin. Again, depending on the focus, we could easily identify a particular connection that we should utilize as we execute the instruction. For example, pang skills-based pala. Okay? Pang skills-based pala yung competency na to. So therefore, we should be able to find ways from which we could be able to connect the learners, okay, to what they know or what they are exposed to be able to apply their skills. For example, one of the key stage standards in elementary science is for the learners to be able to categorize or group things according to their characteristics. Yung grouping, skill yan. Because skill, kasi they would identify a particular characteristic of a material before they could place it in a particular group. Diba? For example, the activity that can be provided by the learners is to ask the students to be able to organize the things in their bedroom, organize the things in their cabinet. So titingnan nyo rin, you also have to be aware kung meron bang bedroom ang bata. Kung may cabinet ba ang bata. Dapat alam natin yan. Kasi sasabihin ng bata, ma'am, wala naman aming bedroom. Ma'am, wala naman kaming cabinet. Okay, sige, wag na lang yung bedroom, wag na lang yung cabinet. Organize mo yung laman ng bag mo. How are you going to organize that? And why did you organize it that way? So by doing so, we would know the design, okay, in mind na pwede nating magamit. Plus, we must also consider the cognitive approaches. So we make sure that we choose or you choose the strategy that is most appropriate to the learning you wish to impart to your audience. That's why before you execute the learning, I would suggest that you identify what particular okay, that you identify what particular context in mind do you have. Okay, for example, ang skill ba na to or ang competency ba na to pang knowledge ba? If you know beforehand that it is merely focused on the knowledge, you would know the particular strategy or approach that you would use because pang knowledge-based lang mo to. Okay? If it's a skill-based competency or a skill-based content, immediately we need to identify, for example, in the second column of the curriculum, pwede tayong maglagay dyan, what particular skills-based activity are you going to use? Okay, for example, in mathematics, no? The skill is for example, measurement. Diba? Measurement. The learners could be able to measure things using measuring tools, kagaya ng mga ruler, protractor, etc. And then the project would be, and then at the side of it, competency, your contextual learning strategy is for them to be able to create a magazine rack. See, so yung mathematics natin parang pang TLE, no? So gagawa siya ng magazine rack, pero the material that will be given to the child is just a piece of long wood. So that is a good strategy. So ang gagawin niya, siya ang magme-measure, siya ang maghihiwa, siya rin ang magdidikit. So the mathematical skills which is measuring can be applied in the actual and real life situation. So again, para hindi tayo manghuhula, this skill-based approach must be identified beforehand. Bago pa lang tayo magsimula ng school year natin this coming August, dapat mga teachers na identify na niya yan sa curriculum. So if you intend to use the reduced competency na provide ng DepEd, dapat nire-review nyo na yan isa-isa para malaman or you could be able to create a design with the most relevant approach in mind, right? So, um, dear teachers, we need to influence. If you would like to have an implementation of or full-scale implementation of contextualized learning, we need to see or we need to influence the following. Kaya halimbawa, na-convince na kayo, maganda pala yung contextualized learning approach. Kasi you could be able to establish connection between the context of the lesson into the actual and real life situation where the students are exposed to. So napakaganda. Ang sarap implement. The big question is, paano ko i-implement? Okay, madali lang. Ganito yon. Start with the curriculum, read it, and identify what is being required or being developed by the curriculum. Pasimplihin nyo lang. Knowledge, process or skills, and then anong gustong maunawaan ng mga bata or mga dapat na maunawaan ng mga bata based on the curriculum requirement. At pang-apat, ano ang expected outcome na hinihingi ng curriculum. And based on these four, you could be able to connect the contextual learning approach strategies. Ano bang strategy ko sa pang mga knowledge na competency? Paano ko makukonect ang mga facts and information in the actual life? Diba? How can I be able to connect, for example, the skills in grammar, di ba? Into what they are exposed to. Halimbawa, ang lesson mo sa curriculum is SVO agreement. The learners will be able to write a paragraph considering or applying the rules of SVO, subject, verb, object, agreement. So paano yun? Saan ba sila naka-expose ngayon? Ano bang mga ginagawa nila? Papagawa ba ako ng letter at ipapamail ko? Of course, boring na yan. Perhaps email na lang. Okay na rin, pero mas may advance pa. Pwedeng gagawin ko ay kukuha ako ng learning portal, di ba? Halimbawa, gagamitin ko yung kung ano-ano, Google Meet or Google Classroom, etc. And many other creative ways of doing it. Okay? So pwede nating gawin yon. Okay? So sa curriculum pa lang yan. Pangalawa, the instruction can be integrated to the curriculum. So, susulat ko. Okay? Parang ganito yan. I have this bond paper. Hatiin nyo sa tatlo. Okay. Ayan, stop sharing muna. Tignan nyo muna ako. Okay. Simple lang. Meron kayong bond paper. Parang ito yung model nyo, no? Hatiin mo sa tatlo. Yung unang column mo, the curriculum requirement. Diba? At pangalawang column mo, okay, i-identify mo ano ba yung target ng curriculum mo, ng competency. Ano ba to? Pang-knowledge ba to? Pang-process or skill ba to? Pang-understanding ba to? Or pang-learning outcome? And then pangatlo, column, ilagay mo na yung approach mo. Let's say, dito, ilalagay mong approach ay baking a cake. O kaya naman, creating sa lesson mo on measuring, which is a skill. Let's say measuring dito, which is your competency. And then, it is a skill. And then, ilagay mo naman dito sa third, ano yung contextual learning approach na gagawin mo. In this case, gagawa sila ng magazine rack. Okay? Gagawa sila ng magazine rack at sila ang magme-measure ng mga materials to be used for magazine rack. So, di ba? Ang ganda. So, ganyan lang kasimple. Isang kuwarte, pwede kayo makagawa ng contextualized learning plan ninyo. Okay? Na pwede nyong maging guide sa isang buong taon. Pwedeng 4 pages lang for the 1 school year. Okay? Mga teachers, huwag kayong magagalit ha. Administrators, pwede niyong pagawa to sa mga teachers. Madali lang to. Pero wag na masyadong specific. Okay? What matters most is kayang basahin ng teacher ang curriculum, alam niyang identify what is being developed in the curriculum, and the third column, alam niya kung anong strategy, contextual learning strategy, ang pwede niyang magamit. Alright. Next, aside from that, pwede nyo pang dagdagan ng iba't ibang mga columns. Pwede nyo itong gawing 4. Yung pang-4 na column, i-identify nyo na rin yung mga learning support materials na kailangan nyo. Para ngayon pa lang, you could be able to identify your wish list for this coming August. Ma'am, I'm making myself ready sa hamon ng COVID-19. Gusto ko pong gumaling kay na teacher. I want my students to learn even though it's a distance learning approach. I need the following learning support materials, which would comprise the 4th column of your plan. Okay? Pwede yon. Kailangan mo ba ng mga libro? Kailangan mo ba ng mga video link? Etc. Kailangan mo ba ng mga training? Ang 4 na bullet? And etc. At higit sa lahat, dear viewers, ang pinakamahalaga in this learning experience, in the contextualized learning approach, is the community involvement. Okay, because there are cases that, or in many cases, especially ngayong pandemic, tuloy-tuloy yung mga lesson natin. Of course, limited ang mga materials sa mga gamit natin. So the greatest allies would we have are the members of the community. Sometimes it's inevitable for us not to use the internet, for example, in a particular area. Okay, just like what is being done by the other LGUs. Okay, we could be able to communicate to them our school requirement. O kaya naman, baka naman yung Globe or PLDT pwedeng bigay ng discounted connection sa mga subscribers ng mga bata, etc. So anything. O kaya naman, there are particular like universities or colleges that are neighbors of your school na pwede silang pumunta ron. They could do some activities there in the school following a certain rules or guidelines, etc. So if we want to be successful in this contextualized learning approach, we need to influence the following, or else our effort will be null and void. Hanggang salita lang yan. Okay, makikita natin if we apply that in the curriculum, instruction, in identifying the learning support materials, if we identify an appropriate training development for our teachers, for example, just like this webinar, and also, huwag nating kakalimutan, we need to involve the community. Because I strongly believe that the community helps a lot in the learning process. Sila mag-a-assist sa atin. Let's say, kailangan ng permit, kailangan lumabas, di ba? Or kailangan mag-interact. Let's say, kailangan mag-conduct ng interview, ng survey ng bata. So, kailangan through the adults or kailangan through the barangay tanod, ma-disseminate yung mga checklist na to to the people in the locality. So, we need to get them involved, especially na naka-quarantine tayo halos lahat. So again, please take note of this. Influence the following if you want to be successful in the contextualized learning approach. This is one of the modalities that we could possibly use. Pangalawa, design for effectiveness. Diba? Okay, yung effort natin in implementing ang contextualized learning approach should not be doomed for destruction. That's why we need to establish its destiny. We need to design for effectiveness. We need to identify the activities that, okay, design activities that also teach the procedure, processes, and discipline. So dapat alam na natin to ngayon. Pwede natin itong isulat yung mga references sa curriculum natin on how and when to apply those skills and that knowledge in the given context. So, kitang-kita natin, bago tayo mag-design, bago tayo mag-isip ng iba't ibang mga modalities, okay, isipin natin kung saan naka-fit ang modality na yon. Okay? So, we need to identify where would those modalities fit into the curriculum as we implement them. Again, we have the curriculum. We need to identify what is being asked by the curriculum. Knowledge ba to? Process skills, understanding, or products and performance ba to? Then, pangatlong column, mag-identify tayo ng mga strategies. Pang-apat na column, let's identify the materials. And by doing so, our targets are clear. Diba? Halimbawa, nag-request ka ng material, no? So, kitang-kita mo sa letter na pinapadala mo kay Mayor that without this material, for example, without the internet connection, for example, we cannot be able to execute this particular skill. Without this interactive toy, we cannot be able to demonstrate this skill using online approach. So, ganon. So, this would make it more convincing because it is aligned to the curriculum requirement. That's how we design approaches for effectiveness. Next, let us design activities and approaches, okay, for transference. Medyo malalim, no? Okay? So let's simplify this meaning. Its meaning. So it means that learners need to be able to transfer their skills, knowledge, and experiences to the environment. Okay? So, ano bang ibig sabihin nito? Right. So, meaning, as we identify activities or a particular strategy, we need to make sure that the students could be able to transfer their learnings in the actual and real-life situation. Dear audience, this is the trust of the Department of Education. This is the reason why the products and performances or the performance tasks play a big chunk of percentage in the grading system. Some subjects have 40%, others have 50%. I think sa English, 50%. I think math and science, 40%. Sa TLE, 60% ang mga performance tasks. Bakit? Kasi gusto, okay, gusto ng ating Department of Education na makita kung saan ina-apply ng bata ang kanyang mga natututunan. So as we all know, we have already been applying the contextualized approach from the very beginning of the K-12 program. We are just reviewing. Okay? So, much greater transfer of knowledge take place when information is organized in a conceptual framework. So everyone, so dapat ito yung tututukan natin. For example, mga head teachers, supervisors, school heads, school principals, and directors. We need to ensure that there are opportunities. Ngayon, distance learning tayo. So dapat meron pa ring opportunities ang mga bata from which they could be able to have the opportunity to transfer their skills and knowledge, okay, in a certain situation. So, kailangan natin yan. Next, another consideration that we need to have in contextualized learning is design the social consciousness. So, as we all know, yung learning, yung in-implement natin, for example, yung K-12 program, learning could be done in a different way or in different ways. It could be in the teacher-guided, it could be in group, and it could be in individual. So, ang gustong-gusto natin talaga ay magkaroon ang mga bata ng social interaction. So ngayon, medyo mahirap yung physical interaction, but still they could do social interaction in many creative ways that you could possibly think of. Diba? So pwede yon. In many possible ways that you could think of. So hindi ko sinasara yung mundo na kailangan online lang. Online lang. Kung kailangan na pwedeng magpa-LBC or kailangan na ganito or etc. Huwag natin isara ang isip natin sa online lang. Ang distance learning could be done in many different ways, hindi lang through internet. Diba? Pwedeng calls, pwedeng through module, pwedeng through papel, pwedeng through worksheets, etc. So again, challenge to kasi magdi-design tayo ng mga activities na gusto natin na merong social interaction. Wala nga lang physical contact. Bakit? Hindi pwedeng wala. Hindi tayo pwedeng walang mga social activities sa mga bata. Bakit? Ito yung trust din ng Department of Education. Okay? Which is under the 21st century skills. Okay? It is the trust of the Department of Education and many countries all throughout the world to be able to develop uh, the the skills in communication, di ba? Communication skills, kailangan yan. O, kapag wala mga social interaction, kanino sila makikipag-communicate sa sarili nila? Okay? Or sa teacher lang ba? So dapat meron pa rin mga ganong interaction or opportunities to be able to work with the group or other students as well. Pero eto, lalo-lalo na naka-distance tayo, kailangan alam natin yung mga background ng mga bata. We need to know their social background including culture and norms. Or else, instead na makatulong, baka maging disaster. Ang ating approach. So, kailangan maayos yung configuration natin. Okay? May mga bata kasi na ayaw nakapartner yung mga boys. May mga boys na ayaw na may girls. So, we need to know, pwede tayong magkaroon ng survey or kilalanin natin sila kung ano ba yung approach na gusto nila or the approach that is the group approach that is most or more appropriate to them. So remember, we could create a better context for learning to be able, for the learning to be transferred more effectively. If the social consciousness or if social background or social factor could be a hindrance to learning, wag na. Kaya since we encourage this collaboration or collaboration skills based on the 21st century skills, ayusin natin ang pag-design ng ating mga groups. Right? May papakita ko sa inyo maganda. Merong mga iba't ibang types ng groupings. Tignan nyo na lang kung alin yung pinaka-appropriate sa inyong mga students. Okay? Lalo na ngayong pandemic. Okay. So una, pwedeng teacher-assigned group. Alright? Pwedeng student choose groups. Or pwedeng randomized group work. So pwede to. At eto marami itong mga klase. Sobrang daming examples nito. At screenshot nyo na lang, dito nyo sila matatagpuan sa teachhub.com. So there are 30 ways, I think, for example, merong 10 examples on which you could be able to create different groupings. Yan, check this link, www.teachhub.com. 30 ways to arrange students group work. Dear teachers, this is very inevitable. Okay? We really have, our creativity is being tested nowadays talaga. My gosh, we need to satisfy the 21st century skills without the physical contact. So, paano yun? So, eto, perhaps makakatulong to in identifying or creating group for various contextualized learning activities. Alright? Panglima, consideration, design iteratively. So meaning, we could start with the immediate focus on the broad contextualized learning activities that learners need to perform as part of their daily work or routine. So pwede nating i-identify yun kung ano ba talaga. And then in doing so, we have to be very, very specific. Next is you can build a supporting contextual learning activities that focus on the basic skills and knowledge to be able to carry out those broad activities. May maganda akong example nito mamaya. And then this approach is repeated in several iterations. Okay. Okay. Um, in designing activities, they need to understand a big picture. Big picture of this cake. Okay. Perhaps all of you are hungry now at pwede niyo siyang orderin online. Okay, this is Mango Bravo. Perhaps nagugutom na kayo. Merienda time na. The big picture, for example, of the task is the learners could be able to create cake. That's the big task. Gagawa ko ng cake. But when you say that to the students, it's very overwhelming, di ba? Okay, ngayon, i-identify mo naman yung needs ng bata. Sabi ng curriculum, gumawa ng cake. Ang tanong, anong cake? Cake para saan? So ngayon, since we are contextualizing learning, pwede mong tanongin yung bata, ano ang paborito mong okasyon or paboritong holiday sa Pilipinas? Ang sagot niya, for example, Ma'am, ako po araw ng kagitingan. Ako araw ng mga bayani. Diba? Ako naman po gusto ko Christmas. O kaya naman, ako naman gusto ko Halloween. Okay. Ngayon, magde-design kayo ng cake or gagawa kayo ng cake based on your favorite occasion. So halimbawa, yung group mo ay napili. Okay, pag ganun kasi, dear teachers, if you ask the students, mas magiging meaningful ang activity. I remember one of my professors in PNU, si Dr. Concepcion, sabi niya, in terms of strategies, I want you to devote one day or one lesson to be able to plan with your students. Plan the activities with your students. At first, we were thinking that it was a crazy idea. Sabi namin, what? Mga bata magpaplano with us ng strategy? And I did that when I was teaching. I involved my students and the result was fun. So one of the suggestions they made was, magklase kami sa hagdanan. When I was teaching them different types or characteristics of rocks. So after going to the garden and they got their rock samples, they sat on the hagdanan. Sabi nila, Sir, di ba ang ganda ng view mo? Para kaming nasa auditorium. So they enjoyed. They participated actively because they liked what they were doing. Okay? And the curriculum standards were not compromised. Huh? So pwede nating tanungin yung mga bata. So this is the big picture. Sabi ng curriculum, gagawa kayo ng cake. Anong klaseng cake? Let them identify the kind of cake. Then pag-identify na lang nila, go to the specific. Gagawa sila ng chiffon cake, for example, wherein they could apply the skills in mixing, in measuring, etc. Then designing the cake, paggawa ng icing, and etc. Meron pa. Cake for special occasion, at kanino mo bibigay ang cake? Pag sinabi niya, for example, Sir, ibibigay ko po yung cake ko sa mga senior citizen organization. So therefore, that would affect the design of cake, di ba? May significance sa buhay niya kasi senior, nabubuhay siya sa senior, di ba? Nakatira siya sa lolo't lola niya. At with that, merong application sa buhay niya kasi alam niya yung characteristics ng lolo't lola niya. Na hindi pwede yung sobrang alat, hindi pwede yung sobrang tamis kasi matataas na yung mga blood pressure nila. So, ma'am or sir, I will be designing a cake na that is sugar-free so that the senior citizens will be able to taste it without harming or posing harm to their health. Di ba ang ganda? So kapag pinagawa niyo yan, dear teachers sa mga bata, if you contextualize the lesson or if you establish the activities or create activities that have relevance into their lives, mamahalin kayo ng mga bata because they will never forget this contextualized lesson approach that you created for them. Okay? So we cannot be able to find these approaches in the book, but I'm telling you, you could create them. Diba? You could create them because you are the ones who know and understand your students. You know them, you know their background, you know what they're thinking about, and that's why you're the teacher. Okay, their background would serve as your guide in identify instructional strategies, appropriate instructional strategies for them. Okay, six, design for groups, right? So the most successful contextual learning strategies are those that are designed with groups of learners. I want to strengthen what I have said regarding the 21st century skills, as opposed to focusing on individual learners. Okay din naman yung one-on-one. Pero maganda na meron silang opportunities to be able to mingle with others. Okay, again, sa situation natin ngayon, they could mingle with others without the physical contact. So that's because in the real world, learners must interact with fellow workers, for example, di ba? Kasi sayang yung skill na madedevelop nila ngayong panahon na to if we would stop them from interacting with one another. Kasi sabi nga, no man is an island. They cannot get away with the social interaction. In the future, they would be interacting with fellow workers, business partners, supervisors, management teams, and etc. That's why dinidikdik ng Department of Education ang collaboration skills. Diba? Tuturuan natin yung mga bata to collaborate in many different ways. And last, design assessments appropriately. Yes, ginagawa natin to iba't ibang mga activities, iba't ibang mga modalities na to, but all these efforts will be null and void kung we cannot be able to measure it. So therefore, it's very important to design assessments properly. Okay? Kapag pinapagawa natin sila ng mga tasks, I would suggest na ibigay nyo na sa kanila kagad ang mga determinants. Give them the rubrics. Okay, others kasi binibigay yung rubrics at they evaluate. No, that's a mistake. You tell them what the standards are, and these standards would serve as their guide as they create projects, as they design products. Okay? Ganun po. As they apply their skills. Kasi kung walang standard, of course, we will be in chaos. Para tayong mga manok na pinutulan ng leeg. Diba nakakita na kayo? Ang manok, kapag tinaga mo yung leeg, tapos nakawala, tatakbo siya ng tatakbo, di ba? Pero anong difference sa may ulo? Tatakbo siya ng walang direction. So therefore, in order to establish a direction, make sure that kakambal, twinning yung iyong activity design to the assessment design. So when designing your contextualized approach to learning, you should evaluate learners based on the authentic assessment. Okay? Instead of measuring their command of remembering or blindly performing specific activities. So I do hope that you could be able to have a full grasp of it. So this is the real score on how we could be able to do the contextualized approach. Ito yung actual content ng approach na to. So sabi, gusto ko yung sinabi ni John Mueller, professor of psychology. Sabi niya, authentic assessments, ito, kanina ko pa ito binabanggit. Kailangan kasi natin ng mga authentic tasks or authentic assessment para may paglagyan or paggamitan ang mga skills, knowledge, and understanding ng mga bata. Kung wala kang mga authentic tasks or authentic assessment, ang knowledge ay mananatiling stand-alone knowledge or stand-alone skills. At makakalimutan niya na yan. Aaralin niya lang yan kasi magbibigay ka ng exam. Kailangan niyang pumasa. Pag bumagsak siya, mawawala siya ng baon. Or mababawasan yung baon niya. Okay? But without meaning. The knowledge, the process, skills, or understanding would have its deeper meaning as applied into the authentic assessment. Right? Okay. So sabi niya, authentic assessment as okay, he defined authentic assessment as assessments where learners are required to show their command of what they learned. Diba? Dati kasi paper and pencil, satisfied na tayo eh. Pero ngayon hindi. They have to demonstrate what they have learned. They should put the learning, okay, into actual context, diba? Or actual scenario. By applying that knowledge and those skills saan? To the real world task. Alright, real world task ang kailangan natin. Yan yung mga authentic tasks na binabanggit natin sa mga training natin ng K-12 program. Let us have a sort of review on the student literacy. If you could be able to see my screen, tignan natin dito. Okay, this is the student literacy, itong big picture. Sa loob niyan, okay, dito siya natututo. Ito yung mga kaalaman niya. Nandito sa loob yung kanyang skill, yung kanyang knowledge, etc. So, sa loob din niya ng literacy, nandiyan yung iba't ibang klaseng assessment. For example, the traditional testing, okay, and the performance assessment. It should jive with the performance assessment. Of course, we still have the traditional testing. All right? Okay, so traditional testing helps us answer the question, do you know it? Diba? Alam mo ba yon? And the performance assessment helps us answer the question, how well can you use what you know? Or what would you do with the things that you know? Okay, alam mo yan. So, paano mo i-apply? Diba? So, kung napanood nyo, if you have watched the movie, The Three Idiots, diba? Meron dalawang character doon. Yung isa kabisote, yung iba performer. So, later on in their life, naging successful sila pareho. Pero, mas naging successful yung isa. Okay, yung character doon, okay, that are good in applying practically the things that he has learned. At kapag kayang i-apply yung mga natutunan natin, of course, this is a more lasting knowledge. Okay, so what is the balance now? Anong balance ngayon? Look at the fulcrum, di ba? Do you know it? Kailangan nakabalance siya. Can you use it? Di ba? Alam mo ba kung paano mo gamitin? Alright. Alam mo how it functions, but do you know how to use it? Diba? Yes. Alam mo ang 5 ways to identify whether the fish is fresh or not. Tignan ang kaliskis, tignan ang hasang, tignan ang mata, pindutin ang katawan kung matigas o malambot, at panglima ay amuyin. Yes, kaya mong i-enumerate yan. Pero pag pinapunta ka ng nanay mo sa palengke, kaya mo bang magbitbit o makapila ng sariwang isda na kakainin mo? Alright. So, you know it. You know how to enumerate the characteristics of the fresh fish. Pero kaya mo bang bumili ng sariwang isda at dalhin sa bahay nyo at lutuin? So therefore, tignan natin yung mga skills under it. You recall, identify, list, and match. Dear principals, pag nag-check kayo ng mga test paper ng mga teachers, tignan nyo kung umiikot lang ang mga tanong nila dito. Kasi pag umiikot lang, knowledge-based ang school nyo. They are not assessing what is supposed to be assessed. Okay? Ito ang hanapin nyo. Try to identify whether there are opportunities from which the learners could be able to classify, compare, analyze, evaluate. Diba? So yon ang titignan natin in terms of instruction, and in terms of assessment. Alright, malinaw po ba? Okay, next, I'm going to show you some samples of the performance tasks at different levels. May pang high school, may pang elementary, at meron din pang kindergarten. Kasi for sure may mga nanonood dito ng mga preschool teachers. Gumawa ako ng topic dito na graphs. Graph. Okay, may mga linya-linya. For high school, halimbawa the lesson is all about graph. Okay, you could be able to provide students with a copy of speeding ticket, okay, that shows how the fine is determined. Or ticket ng MMDA, or pwede kayo mag-download ticket ng Amerika kung anong gusto niya. And then you could say to the students, how is the fine for speeding in our country determined? Ganda, di ba? Or in your locality determined. Or in EDSA determined. Or in Pasong Tamo determined. Or in Davao determined. It's up to you. Or in Bacolod determined. Sa Davao, nako, matindi speed limit dyan. 30 lang or 40. Okay. Then make a paragraph that show drivers in our town how much it will cost them if they are caught speeding. O, di ba? Ang ganda. So gagawa sila ng graph at pwede lang i-share sa mga TODA. Halimbawa sa mga paradahan ng mga jeep, paradahan ng mga UV Express, yan, doon sila gagawa ng graph. So ang ganda, di ba? There's a community involvement ng lesson mong graph. So that serves as a warning. And then at the same time, application din ng learning ng mga bata. Okay. Next. Elementary naman, graph pa rin ang lesson. So in this case, in this scenario, may mga dumadaan sa intersection na malapit sa school. You could say to the students, the police department is considering a traffic light or a crossing guard at yung guard na mga nagsasayaw-sayaw sa mga crossing. Okay? Crossing guard at the intersection near your school. Naku, maglalagay ng traffic light. At ang gagawin mo is, your help is needed to make graphs that show how many vehicles goes through that intersection at certain times of the day. O di ba, research na to. Monday, Tuesday, morning, afternoon, evening. So excellent graphs will be sent to the chief of police to serve as their guide. Di ba? So ang ganda. That's why I informed you before that community involvement is very important. Okay? To realize or to apply this this approach. Diba? Hindi makakayanan ng school lang to. Yung contextualized learning approach, okay, and different modalities, kailangan ng involvement ng iba't ibang mga tao. Okay? In this case, kitang-kita nyo, di ba? Okay? Involved yung una, involved dito yung mga drivers. Next naman, involved dito yung chief of police. Tignan naman natin sa primary school. Alright. In view of the class, place 10 caterpillars in a box. Place a flashlight at one end, and while darkening the other by folding over the box top. Then, tanungin niyo sila, do caterpillars move more to the light or more to the dark? Make a graph that shows how many caterpillars move to the light and how many move to the dark part of the box. Your graphs will be displayed at open house. O di ba, ang ganda mga pambata, doon kukulayan nila, lalagyan nila ng mga design, mga ribbon, mga flowers, or actual drawing of the caterpillar. So that's gonna be fun. Okay, so I would suggest that you should start designing activities like this as you apply the contextualized learning. So ngayon, may naka-release na tayo ng curriculum. Diba? Meron kayong choice. I-adapt nyo yun kung marami pa kayong oras or time na magturo sa mga bata or masyadong advanced yung mga bata, you could utilize the curriculum guide in a full scale. Right? So what can we do to implement contextual learning? So we could create learning environment that support contextual learning classroom. All right? Pwedeng classroom, pwedeng laboratory, pwedeng lab, or even a work site. So marami kong mga inikutan ng mga schools, talagang meron silang parang model na para talaga siyang work site. Sa Angelico, meron silang parang hotel talaga, di ba? Tsaka yung mga ibang school na pinuntahan ko, meron talaga silang hotel na room na pwedeng i-arrange ng bata and they could be able to experience the actual scenario. So, and then incorporate many different forms of experience in working toward the desired learning outcomes. So, marami yan. So, the basic thing that we need to know is students discover meaningful relationships between abstract ideas, and practical applications in the context of the real world. So I'm hoping na marami po tayong mga natutunan ngayong araw na to. And I'm also hoping that we could be able to utilize all these learnings in our school. Okay, kung magtatayo kayo ng school, pwede nyo gawin. Or if you're a teacher, you could be able to start applying it as a part of your lesson preparation. So we need to make sure that all the concepts being learned by the students, hindi lang puro abstract. That the concepts are internalized through the process of discovering, reinforcing, and relating. Okay. So that's all for this afternoon session. For more information, you can follow me on the following. And may mga emails ako rito. We also conduct training at the STEM Education Training Hub. So we do have science fairs, we have emails here, and etc. So you could connect with me, or I could somehow do some webinars for your school like this. If you want to expand our discussion on contextualized learning approach. So we are hoping that you could be able to gloriously apply these contextualized learning modalities in your school. So I cannot be able to specifically identify a particular modality appropriate for your school because this is governed by your research, by the data that you gather about your students. So I would suggest that as of now, sana nakapag-gather na kayo ng data about your students. Okay? Meron ba silang connectivity? Wala? Mag-enroll ba sila o hindi? Ilan ang pwedeng mag-enroll sa room and etc. Anong ginagawa? Anong interest nila and etc. Kasi kapag malalaman na natin to beforehand, it would be an advantage for all of you guys to be able to plan out your curriculum, plan out your instructions, especially if you're convinced, for example, that, this year I'm going to use the contextualized learning approach. We will use it different modalities as our instructional approach. So pag ganyan, so dapat we know where we are heading to by knowing the student background or the learner background. And also by having an inventory of our personal resources within the school context or within the school community. Right? So, um, in closing, uh, I would like to read this to you, or leave it to you, that the great aim of education is not knowledge, but action. Diba? So, hayaan natin na gamitin ng mga bata yung kanilang mga knowledge, learnings, again, for their benefit of the society, for the benefit of the family, for the benefit of mankind, or for the universe, rather. All right? So, we're hoping that you have a wonderful learning experience. So you could still connect with me. I have a Facebook page. Pwede akong i-message if you have some questions. Because I cannot be able to interact with all of you, with all of your questions. So you could send me some questions and clarifications. And we are hoping to be able to see you in our next webinar. So this coming Friday, I would have my third webinar in an Invival group. I will be talking about the curriculum solely on how we could be able to, dati unpacking, ngayon repacking ang pag-uusapan natin ng curriculum. And I hope to see you at 2 o'clock this coming Friday for another webinar sessions. Okay, goodbye.